You know, it's funny, I was thinking earlier today, there hasn't really been that much important music news lately. Albums haven't really been dropping, you know, not really hot new songs, and damn, we had a bomb drop earlier today about Daft Punk and fucking ruined my night. So wanted to hop on here and do a quick video. Gonna be sharing my thoughts about Daft Punk breaking up. Gonna also give my reactions to the new Britney Spears and Tekashi 6ix9ine documentaries that I saw recently. But as always, if you enjoy the content on this channel, you enjoy this video, please show your support. Hit that like button down below, hit the subscribe button down below, and if you're a return subscriber, hit the notification bell to be alerted for new content. Sad news, if you're a Daft Punk fan, the group has announced that they will be splitting up. That's right, no more Daft Punk. For a group that has only released, I think, maybe 4 or 5 studio albums of the 30 years that they've been together, they have had a monumental impact on the music world, not just on electronica music, but on rock music, R&B music, hip-hop music. I mean, you had guys like LCD Sound System, the song they're playing Daft Punk at my house because people loved playing Daft Punk at house parties. When they came out with their first album, Homework, in 1997, you know, they were competing at a time where electronic music was really hitting a stride in the mainstream. Chemical Brothers coming out, Prodigy was hot, and also artists delving into electronica like Janet Jackson, Bjork, Madonna were influenced by groups like Daft Punk as early as the late 90s. And then they didn't release another album for 4 years. And they came out with Discovery in 2001, a classic, one of the greatest electronic albums of all time, and at a time when electronic was being heard on TV shows and movie trailers, video games. Electronic music was one of the dominant music genres in the world. Discovery, to me, probably their best album, just a wall-to-wall of just bangers that everybody knows. And then they took another 4-year break with Human After All, and while some people may say, you know, it was kind of like a decline from Discovery, it's still not a bad album. And then they take another break. Of course, they do like the Tron Legacy stuff, but as far as studio albums, they didn't release another album for 8 years. So we're talking about a group that, you know, they don't just rush their work. You know, they really, what I respect about Daft Punk is that they take time to craft their artistry. They care about their work. They're not gonna put out bullshit music. They're not just gonna put out filler just for the sake of, oh, well, you know, we gotta capitalize on the success. No, they really took time on their music, and they made sure that when they dropped music, it was important. It was the best thing that they were ever gonna release. You know, 2013 with Random Access Memories, you can hear the details. You can hear, you know, all of the hard work, and they spent a lot of money on that album, and it definitely showed, and they reaped the rewards of it. And that album, you know, kind of was initially, you know, a lot of Daft Punk fans didn't really like it because it was so different from their 3 previous albums. We're talking about a group that was influenced by French house and, you know, techno, and now they were doing disco and 70s funk and soft rock, and collaborating with Nile Rodgers and Giorgio Moroder. It was a weird change, but commercial success happened. This was Daft Punk finally broke into the mainstream. That song Get Lucky, which I remember summer of 2013, everybody loved that song, and, you know, young and old, and I think that was the song that really put Daft Punk over the moon. Won the Grammy Award for Album of the Year. That type of success got them to working with Kanye West, The Weeknd, Arcade Fire, like some really prestigious artists. I know a lot of fans are gonna be sad about this. They were expecting new music. They wanted to hear what a 2021 Daft Punk record would sound like, but for me, I'm not as shocked. The last record they released, it was in 2013 while I was still in college, so that was a long time ago. Random Access Memories was such a big success, but it was also such a big left turn from their previous work, and I felt that that record was a love letter to music in general, not just like disco, but to what they loved about music. And I think it's a fitting end to their career in a sense. You know, they finally climbed Mount Everest. They finally got the acclaim from everybody. Maybe this is the way they were meant to go out. Props to you, Daft Punk. Thank you for the great music that you put out. Never say never. They could come back. LCD Sound System, ironically, came back. But for now, if this is it, you know, hey, what a great ride. And I'll end it with this. It's very ironic that they decided to take their mask off in a year where we're all wearing our mask. You know, go figure. Next, I want to talk about the Framing Britney Spears documentary that I saw the other day. And man, this is what I'll say. The Britney Spears hive is unreal. I thought Eminem stans were crazy. I thought that Nicki Minaj Barbies were insane. But man, Britney Spears fans, they are on another level. The documentary talks about like her rise to fame, her downfall, her subsequent rise, and now I don't know what you call this period of Britney. In terms of my generation, Britney Spears is arguably the biggest pop star around. You know, when I was a kid, when I saw Hit Me Baby One More Time, and for the younger kids that don't know, that are watching this video, like that song was fucking everywhere. Like that video was everywhere. You know, her being in a schoolgirl outfit, like that's like a pop culture moment for the next 5 or 6 years. Like literally, like I could not get away from Britney Spears. Like she was like a fucking like cockroach. Like you couldn't kill her. Like she kept coming back and back. When I look back at when she was kind of having her nervous breakdown in the mid 2000s and shaving her head bald and lashing out the paparazzi, we gotta look at these child actors and child singers when the world is their oyster, when they're 19, 20, 21 years old. You know, it's hard to deal with all that. You know, how do you grapple with that? That's why it's so rare to have like these child actors, these child pop stars to grow up to be normal. I mean, really the only two that I can think about, I guess three if you really think about it, Beyonce, Janet Jackson to a point, Justin Timberlake. And speaking of Justin Timberlake, he came out and tried to clean his trash through a series of, you know, semi-woke posts like, oh, you know, as a white guy, you know, like, I'm so sorry that I let these women down. And it's like, dude, it's been 18 years. Like, you know, it's like a kid could have been born and graduated high school by the time you decide to take responsibility and acknowledge your white privilege. So thank you for that, Justin. A little bit worried about, you know, Billie Eilish. Hopefully she turns out to be one of the good ones, but I don't know. It's these things, the numbers are not in their favor. But anyways, back to Britney. Nowadays, we kind of are more kinder to when stars are doing, you know, mental health, and, you know, and talking about that. And, you know, we're less likely to tear these pop stars down. But back in the 2000s, the whole tabloid culture, paparazzi culture was at its peak, and we just didn't care. You know, we built these pop stars up and we tore them down. You know, the Whitney Houstons, the Michael Jacksons, you know, they met their early demise dealing with drug addictions, and it was partly due to the stress that they felt from the media. You know, and Britney Spears, you know, there was a time where I was very worried that she was gonna go down that same path, that we were gonna be talking about her like we talk about Amy Winehouse or, you know, Kurt Cobain. But she pulled it together, you know, had a comeback, and, you know, although she hasn't had like a hit song in years, you know, she's doing her Las Vegas shows and she seems to be doing quite well for herself, until I heard about this fucking conservatorship, which I still is, you know, it's still like a little weird to kind of like break down the whole thing, because, you know, they're saying that she's a high functioning conservator, but if she's a high functioning conservator, then that means she can make her own decisions. Why is she under this conservatorship? And for those of you who don't know what conservatorship is, you know, anybody is usually conserved for old people who can't, you know, take care of themselves. They, you know, get like a proprietor to, like, you know, make their own decisions for them. But Britney Spears, we know that she's not even in her 40s yet. You know, she obviously is high functioning. She obviously can think for herself. You know, I thought the documentary was alright. It could have been much longer. Maybe it should have been a 2-part, maybe 3-part documentary. It could have talked a little bit more about maybe the Kevin Federline thing, you know, that a little bit more about her with the father growing up and why she wanted the fame. And, you know, I just felt like they kind of glossed over certain parts. And lastly, I want to talk about the Tekashi 6ix9ine documentary that I saw titled Supervillain. Now this one actually was a 3-part documentary, and I thought it was really great. For those of you that never listened to Tekashi, never heard of Tekashi 69, heard about the phenomenon from a distance. I mean, I think this is a good introduction as to what this whole phenomenon was about. Remember that show Behind the Music they used to air on VH1 where they talked about, you know, the band growing up as kids and loving music, and they get together and sign a record contract and they become famous, and they, you know, the money and the drugs tear them apart, and then they break up, they find their way, and somebody finds God, something like that, and they'll have that reunion tour and everything's alright again. This was basically the hip-hop version of that, the Tekashi 69, and all of that was, you know, sped up. You gotta remember, this whole Tekashi 69 phenomenon what only happened for a year. You know, I think people forget about that. That rise and fall happened for a year. When I look at this story, I don't see, you know, him as a hero, and then, you know, he manipulated, you know, the system. He broke the system. He was a unique figure. He got caught in this mess. Like, I see it as a cautionary tale, and I see it as, you know, how somebody's obsession with clout, because that's what it was. It was obsession for clout and attention really can be your downfall. And that's what happened here. Tekashi was so obsessed. Well, first of all, Daniel Hernandez was so obsessed with this Tekashi 69 image and trying to be cool and living up to the whole Treyway, you know, I'm blood, all that stuff. And he was so obsessed with that he didn't care who he hurt around him. He was like a grenade, just destroying everything in his path. And that's what he did. And it's interesting because they kind of compared him to Donald Trump. And listen, I'm not trying to make anything political. I'm not trying to talk about politics. But in personality-wise, yeah, I can see how Tekashi and Trump are the same person. He used the Bloods for credibility. They used them for exposure. And, you know, he used them for fame, and he used them for cool points. You know, they talked about him growing up kind of being like a weirdo, and, you know, wearing like mini skirts and trying to be like this unique, having rainbow hair and trying to being into punk rock. You know, he wasn't even into hip hop. You know, he was into metal. He was into punk rock and trying to bring that energy to hip hop. Like they said that he grew up in Brooklyn, but he didn't even know who Biggie was. Obviously, this is a guy who doesn't care about the hip hop culture. He manipulated the hip-hop culture for his own means. We live in an era now where credibility is thrown out the window. Like, we don't care. We are more interested in the drama. We're, you know, this guy, I'll give him this. Very savvy guy. Very smart guy. If he wasn't a rapper, he'd be a genius marketer. The way that he built his brand all by himself to becoming who he was, in some aspects, is very admirable. But the problem is that he just didn't know when to stop. He just became like a caricature of himself, like a cartoon almost, and he tried to live up to the gimmick so much that it backfired. When you're tied to a criminal organization, you know, if you're tied to these guys and they're your family, you're not gonna snitch on them. Like, you're gonna be like, hey, like, these are my dudes, like, I'm gonna ride with them. I'm not gonna snitch. I'm not gonna do anything. Even if you are gonna snitch, you know, you're gonna have, it's gonna weigh on your mind for some periods of time. But this guy, Daniel Hernandez, Tekashi, he'd say, you know, not even 24 hours, and he's like, yeah, I'll cooperate. I'll destroy this guy. You know, it's like, you know, like The Sopranos. Like, if Big Pussy was Tekashi, Big Pussy would have snitched on Tony Soprano, and that would have been like 2 episodes. You know what I mean? Like, they focused the whole season on Big Pussy weighing, should I snitch on these guys, should I not? And Tekashi just didn't care. You know, he didn't care who he hurt. He didn't care that these people who, when he was broke, you know, let him stay at their house. And, you know, him and his pregnant girlfriend and his daughter stay at their house, cook food for them, provided for them, gave them a record contract, held them down. No, it doesn't matter. Loyalty, all that stuff doesn't matter. I'm going to get what I want. And this guy comes out of jail and doesn't take responsibility for himself. The biggest takeaway that I got from this documentary is when one of the guys was like, they asked him, what has Tekashi 69 done for hip-hop culture? And the guy said nothing. And yeah, you know, Tekashi is going to be a footnote in the book of hip-hop. He really is. Hip-hop culture, and I've been a hip-hop fan for a long time, and I've seen people that have come and go. Those type of people were the ones that weren't authentic, and they didn't have any talent, and they just manipulate the culture for their own gain, and they faded away. There's a reason why the Kendricks and the Nicki Minaj's and the Drakes and the J. Coles and the Tupacs and the Biggies and the Jay-Z's and the Nas's and the Eminems. It's why their legacy is intact. It's why people respect them, because they cared about the genre. They contributed to the genre and they gave back to the genre. What Tekashi gave nothing back to the genre except a fucking headache. If you're not gonna be a little more authentic, if you're just gonna keep doing the trolling stuff, people are just not gonna care anymore. And you're just gonna be forgotten about. I loved what they did with the stop motion and the visuals for this, and really just tackling, getting into his psyche. So very fascinating documentary to watch. I want to know what you think in the comment section. Let me know what you think down below. What did you think about these two documentaries, the Britney Spears and Tekashi 6ix9ine documentary? What did you think about Daft Punk breaking up? YouTube recommends these two videos after checking out this one. Until next time, peace.